Hey, hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Let's Play Warframe. I'm your host of the most, as always, Francois878, and today we're going to be doing something that I don't typically do very much on the channel, and that is doing a Devstream recap, Devstream 78 to be specific. The reason I don't do recaps is because I don't think it's very necessary, but this Devstream was so jam-packed, full of new content, that I felt it would be almost criminal not to. I also have a lot of notes, so we are going to dive right in to these. First and foremost, the first thing mentioned on the dev stream that excited me was that the War Within, the final part of Update 19, is now going to be split into two parts. Titiana and her Syndicate quest will be part 1, that should be released sometime in August, TM. And the second part, which is the main quest, the War Within, will be released later. I'm very happy about this. A little part of me is sad because I want the War Within right now, but I know the logical part of me knows that spending time, DE having more time to make sure the update is as bug-free as possible and breaks the game in as few ways as possible is better than them rushing it out. Spectres of the Rail, I'm looking at you. So, take as long as you need, DE. Make sure it's good. That's all I ask. Moving right along, the next big thing that DE, the guys at the dev stream, mentioned, that Lunaro was going to be getting a new map. It's a very desert-themed, Phobos-looking map. I thought it looked pretty cool. It has an interesting feel to it. I'm not going to form a full opinion on it until I've actually played on it, but looking forward to that. That's something that got stale for me very fast, was that there was only one map for Lunaro. So looking forward to that. Also, it's, I guess, worth a mention that the pass button can now be rebound to a different button other than the left mouse button. So for people who want the pass button and the throw Lunaro button on different buttons, can do that now. So more power to you guys. Speaking on the same kind of vein as Lunaro, the Arcada, which is the item weapon that you use to throw the Lunaro around, is actually being implemented into Warframe. We had rumors about this a few weeks ago in another dev stream, but I think it was more of a pipe dream at that point. We saw actual gameplay footage of the Arcada in action, and it works exactly like you would think it would in a PvP match. You can shoulder check, you can recall the Lunaro, you can throw the Lunaro at enemies. It looks pretty cool. I like it. Having 4 people or even 8 people in a raid throwing Lunaros around might get a little crazy, but I think that would be an interesting video to make, honestly. So that's still in the tweaking stages. It's functional, but they are working on tweaking stats and whatnot for that weapon. So take a look for that weapon in the near future, hopefully. And then finally, we got to the meat of the dev stream. Excuse me. Titiana. We saw her ult helmet, which looks pretty cool. We saw her stances, which is basically Titiana levitating, and those stances can be used on any other frame, just like any other stance. So it could be a little interesting to see Rhino or Atlas levitating like that. I think that would be pretty funny. Now, the way to acquire Titiana, like I said before, is a new quest, and it specifically has to do with syndicates. I'm so happy to hear about this. Months ago, when I made a Warframe Wednesdays video, what I want to see at TennoCon, or TennoCon predictions, I mentioned wanting to see more syndicate interactions, more lore for syndicates, just more to syndicates altogether. I feel like they were basically left out to dry. They were implemented and then nerfed, and then just nothing was done with them. It was just left to die, basically. So to see a frame specifically obtainable through syndicates is really nice, and I'm really looking forward to it. Her passive was also revealed, 25% longer bullet jump, and she also leaves behind a jump pad that will grant a similar effect for allies. This isn't bad. Bullet jump is nice. I'm guessing there possibly could have been other stuff that they could have given her that would have been better, but it's not the worst passive in the game. So, we also got a look at her abilities. All of the names here are to be determined. They're not official sanctioned names yet. First ability is called Dust. It's an AoE ragdoll float ability. Basically, it looks like the first part of Oberon's ultimate, where everyone kind of rises up and, you know, before they smash down. So everyone just kind of floats in the air and is ragdolled. It's going to be good for... It's going to be great for crowd control. I think building duration might make that a very interesting ability. Her second ability is Soul Swipe. It is a cone shape in front of Tatiana, and it steals buffs from enemies. There's 35 different buffs that an enemy can have, so DE is working on refining that a little bit, but I think that could be a very interesting ability. And I think that potentially with a augment mod, that could be even more interesting, where you could steal buffs and transfer them to allies. I think that could be really, really cool. Tatiana's third ability is called Lamplighter. This is also a really cool ability. I like the flavor it has. Casts on one enemy. The enemy floats in midair and emits light. Enemies are drawn towards it, and when enemies get close to the affected enemy, Tatiana's razor butterflies will come out and attack any enemies. So it's basically decoy, but where the decoy can actually deal damage. I think it's a very interesting ability. I think that if they make the lamp enemy invincible, well, this is happening. I think that this can be a decoy 2.0 for sure, and building power strength and just shredding enemies that get close to it. I think it can be a very interesting ability, and I'm really, really looking forward to trying it out. Her fourth ability, Tatiana's fourth ability, is called Shrink. Obviously, you shrink, you start using a built-in arc wing, you get a pair of pistols and a sword that are all fairy themed. You are 50% harder to hit, razor butterflies form a deadly swarm around you, and all other abilities are usable in this form. This is going to be insane. If DE can pull this off and get this to work without completely breaking the game, I am going to be so excited. This seems like it seems too good, honestly. Like, I don't know. We'll see though. We'll see. The pistols and the sword, I believe, will also inherit mods from your primary weapon and your melee, similarly to how every other alt works for other frames. So it's a lot of potential, and I'm really, really looking forward to Tatiana and her quest. She's an interesting frame all around, and I'm just really excited to get my hands on her. Moving forward, though, the next big changes that were announced were for Necros. A lot of people complain about Necros. Personally, if you guys go check out my Necros, my Creeping Terrified build for Necros, that's a very solid build to play Necros in a way that isn't just spamming 3. But the changes that Necros has here are very interesting. I'm not sure how they're going to affect my build personally, but we'll just have to wait and see. Desecrate will be toggleable. I feel like this isn't news. I feel like this was something that was announced a while ago. Energy or health, depending on if you have the augment equipped, will be consumed per body affected. So it's not going to be like other toggleable abilities where you turn it on and it just sucks energy. It's actually going to be you turn it on and it only affects enemies that it desecrates, which I think is very cool. It will help save our 3 buttons, but also it doesn't really change the build very much, because duration isn't really that important to desecrate. But if desecrate had become a traditional toggleable skill, duration directly affects efficiency. So I'm glad that they have made it so that desecrate is still toggleable, but in a less than traditional way. We also have gotten some confirmation on some Shadows of the Dead changes. I'm very excited about these. Duration mods no longer affect Shadows of the Dead, thank fucking God. Having to recast that goddamn spell, that ability every 30 seconds, because watching all of my shadows die, despite none of them being close to death, is so irritating. This change was implemented so that lower-end PCs and consoles wouldn't struggle as much. The actual number of shadows that you can summon has been decreased, but damage and health for those shadows have been increased to compensate. Now, also, which shadows are summoned are also going to be changed. Normally, when you cast Shadows of the Dead, it's just your most recent X number of kills. That's what you get. But now, in your kill history, it will be your the best enemies that you have to summon. So the Bombards and the Ancients, those sorts of enemies. So I'm really looking forward to a lot of these changes, recasts of Shadows of the Dead. That was my phone going off. Professional. Recasts of Shadow of the Dead will heal existing shadows and summon any shadows you happen to be missing. This is very interesting. If you're just going to heal shadows and you don't need to summon any new ones, it will actually cut the duration of the cast time. I think this is a really cool effect. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it actually is implemented in game and what it actually feels like. I may I may not take Natural Talent off, but we may get close to taking Natural Talent off. We'll see. The next big thing, and this is something that people are crazy excited about, was finally we're getting some Syndicate melee weapons. They have finally been announced. We've got the Perrin Sequence Lecta, we've got the Red Veil Dark Dagger / Split Sword? I don't really know how that's going to work. I don't know if Red Veil is just getting 2 melee weapons or what. But New Loka, Magistar, the Arbiters of Hexus, Boltus, the Steel Meridian Sidon, and the Cephalon Suda Heliocore. This is awesome. All of these weapons absolutely need a buff, except for the Heliocore, though I'm not shocked that the Heliocore is up for the Syndicate melee. And honestly, I'm really looking forward to that Magistar. That Magistar looked hot. It looked so hot. I'm really these are all definitely low class melee weapons, so moving forward it'll be very interesting to see what they can do. New augments were also mentioned on the Devstream, but were not actually talked about very much because of a printer malfunction. However, in the recap notes, the new augments were detailed in full. So, breaking news, they're right here. The new augments, first one for Nyx. This is for Nyx's Absorb. Forms a small bubble that moves with Nyx. Normally, Absorb plants you in place, you absorb a bunch of damage, you explode, and all the absorbed damage is dealt to any enemy in range. So this is going to form a smaller ball that you can move around, and it'll follow you around, and it'll absorb damage, and then you hit 4 and just blast everything in range. It sounds like kind of like Equinox's ult, except in reverse. You know, instead of dealing damage to enemies and then exploding, it's the damage that it's taking and then it explodes and deals damage. It's interesting. I'm not sure it'll see much play, but I think it'll be interesting to see how it works. Nizha also has a new augment for Warding Halo. Warding Halo can now be cast on allies. Now, Warding Halo is armor, similar to Rhino's Iron Skin. Being able to cast it on allies is sick. This is definitely going to help with survivability, and it will make Nizha definitely a more solid support frame, for sure. It's going to be very interesting. I think this augment might see a considerable amount of play. We'll see, though. I could be totally wrong, but we'll see. We'll see. Atlas gets a new augment for Landslide. When he performs a landslide, an active line will be left behind that will purify enemies that walk into it. I just would feel like he could just use his 3 to purify enemies. I meant petrify. I'm sorry. I'm still on the new Loka Magistar, man. Just violently purifying enemies. I'm sorry. Any enemy that hits the active line will be petrified, turned to stone. I don't think this is going to get a whole lot of play. I think that there are other augments for Atlas that are better, and I don't know. I'm going to pass on it personally, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'm totally wrong, and maybe somebody will prove that to me. We'll see. Inaros is getting an augment for Sandstorm. Sandstorm inherits melee elemental mods to apply procs to any enemy that enters the Sandstorm. This is going to be interesting. Being able to hit radiation procs and toxin procs and gas procs and blast procs and whatever the hell proc you want to hit enemies with Sandstorm, it's a very interesting potential. Like I said, it may get some play, it may not, we'll see. Valkyr is next. Her augment for Hysteria. Ult Fire while in Hysteria now teleports you to targeted enemy. The problem with this mod is that it is going to be trying to fit it into a Hysteria build. I feel like Hysteria builds, there's not a whole lot of room for playing with it, really. This is an amazing, if you can get this mod onto your Hysteria build for Valkyr, it's going to be fucking wicked. I feel like this will solve, being able to teleport to targeted enemies will be able to cut the travel time down, which means the kill aura that grows the longer you're in Hysteria won't be as much of an issue. And you can also teleport to isolated enemies, kill them, and then turn Hysteria off, so that, again, the aura isn't as much of an issue. I think that this has got a lot of potential to be very good if you can fit it onto your build comfortably. If not, it might be a little rough. We'll see. We'll see. The final new augment that we're going to be getting is for Ember, and it is for Ember's Accelerant. It increases the casting speed of allies in range by X%. This is an interesting ability. Accelerant is a pretty decent CC ability. It's not perfect, but it's pretty solid. And to have faster casting time for allies, we'll see. We'll see. Again, I'm not sure how much play it will realistically get, especially when a lot of Ember's other augments are pretty solid. So, we'll see. We'll see. I definitely think there could be an Ember build that features this particular augment, but we'll see. We'll see. We also saw the new Grenier Fortress tile set, which will be featured in the War Within. It's going to be very interesting. It's the first tile set, that will be featuring the new colorblind friendly doors. And it will also feature flamethrower defense turrets. So I'm just going to stop playing right now. I can't even handle Scorches now. Shit. But next on the list is glyphs. Glyphs have been mentioned in a previous Devstream, as well as the new Second Stream podcast, which is the DE community podcast featuring community members and content creators. I highly recommend you check it out. And basically, the glyph is going to be whatever particular player icon you have equipped. You can use a glyph projector, which can be bought in the marketplace with credits, and project your glyph onto a wall in your mission. All existing player icons will be made higher res, as well as a bunch of new artwork and player icons for content creators, YouTubers, and streamers like myself. This is a very interesting thing, and I'm really looking forward to eventually getting my YouTube icon in-game and being able to plaster it on the walls, though I'm guessing that's probably not going to be for a while. I probably won't be in the first wave, but that's okay. And I think this is just an interesting feature to add. This is more of that fashion frame kind of customizable feel to it, and I think it's just interesting. I think it has a lot of potential to be a lot of fun. You know, people can mess around with that and do silly shit with it. Of course, there are some people who aren't going to care, but what can you do? Now we're getting to the end here finally, guys. If you've stuck through, if you've stayed with me this long, I thank you. I don't know what else to say. Tenogen is finally coming to consoles with a very limited number of items, only 5, I believe, and it is going to be platinum only. It's not going to be real money like the Tenogen is on Steam. I'm glad that the consoles are finally getting this. I think it's kind of silly that it's platinum instead of real money, though I understand why. It would just simply be easier with platinum. I'm not sure what that really means for the content creators, but that being said, it'll be interesting to see how that moves forward. And the final little bit of news that I pulled out of the housekeeping is that arcane distillers will now no longer be needed to remove arcanes from cosmetics. This is a good thing and a bad thing. Obviously, it's a great thing because arcane distillers were fucking stupid to begin with, but it's a bad thing if people have a bunch of these items stockpiled. A bunch of these arcane distillers, like me, I have like 8 of them, and I would like to know what will happen to all the arcane distillers that people have. Are they just going to disappear, and is DE just going to say, well, you're shit out of luck, sorry, you just lost 400,000 syndicate standing? Or if there's going to be some kind of reparations made, how will that be done? I'm very interested to see how those questions will be answered moving forward. I have no idea when arcane distillers will be taken out of the game, so we'll see moving forward how that goes. Thank you guys very much for sticking with me through this intensely long video. There's a lot of stuff to cover, and there was a lot of awesome new stuff that I wanted to talk about. So thank you very much for coming by. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more Warframe content coming very soon. I've been your host with the most, as always, Francois878.